Welcome to Across the Rhine to another CoH2 replay cast where we're going to be watching over a 2v2 sent in by Ironhide. And it's going to be a nice game, considering Across the Rhine is one of my favorite 2v2 maps. Now, let's get this going. We have Ironhide playing as the USF and CoH2Cast playing as the British. I don't believe that is the person that usually plays with Ironhide, but we'll see. Now we have CoH2C playing as the OKW on the enemy team and another OKW Krieghound. So we have a nice double OKW to face the the Western Allies, it looks like. So completely Western Front armies / British. So this is going to be an interesting matchup because Across the Rhine is, of course, a very interesting map. Two munitions points in the center, in very harassable locations, but also very open. Victory point in the center, very open. Victory point in the north, kind of open, but very easy to defend from the north. Victory point in the south, also open, but easy to defend from the south. And the two fuel points in a very precluded location, but they are very harassable if you know what you're doing. So it is always a nice map that provokes very strategic gameplay. Now, we have a Cube Wagon on the field from CoH2C. That's definitely the correct decision at this point in the game, because of the fact that he will need as much capping power as possible to just take control of the right side of the map. Now, he's sending it to the center. It looks like he wants to take the victory point first, which is an interesting choice because I find that a lot of players sometimes overemphasize VPs at some points in the game and underemphasize VPs at some points in the game, and this might be it. Like, at this point, he might have much more use for a resource point rather than a VP. And looks like over here, Krieghound is making the same judgment. He's not going for the resource point. That's actually a cutoff for his own fuel point that he captured, which is very interesting. Now he's going for a sneaky cap on the strategic point right south of the middle VP, but he will be intercepted by some rear echelons from Ironhide. Ironhide has a couple of rifleman squads, and he sent them a little bit to a more southern location than you'd expect him to, because of course him being the northern player, you'd expect him to send all his forces to the north, but he's decided to go mostly for the center, which mirrors a bit of what the southern OKW player did, which means that the southern OKW player is about to get encircled on two sides by the British player, CoH2Cast. CoH2Cast coming up from the south with two infantry sections. It looks like one in heavy cover just behind the Cube Wagon. Unfortunately for Ironhide, the Storm Pioneers were able to deal a lot of damage to his own infantry squads, wisely retreating as soon as possible. Now, 3 Storm Pioneers are on the field, 2 from Krieghound and 1 from CoH2C. So that is very bad for the riflemen that weren't sort of grouped up enough to resist that onslaught, and 1 rifleman squad already going down. That is 280 manpower down the drain. That is definitely not the best start for Ironhide. We'll see if we can bring it back. But it looks like at least his own British ally is doing fairly well, keeping a little bit of control over the south of the map. But at this point, he's going to be descended upon by 2 German players if the Germans decide to actually go all out on an assault from the southern side of the map. It could be very bad for CoH2Cast and the Allied map control in general. Now, Ironhide has gone for Infantry Company already. Infantry Company is the only doctor selected so far, and it is a fairly good choice on this map, especially against 2 KW players, because of the Priest and the LMGs. The LMGs will be able to provide the riflemen with a huge amount of firepower compared to the German Volksgrenadiers. Of course, the Obersoldaten will still be superior to them, but they will be at a much more even match than if they had VARs. And of course, the Priest will be very useful to take care of any German defensive locations, such as battle group headquarters in cheeky spots such as this one, that would allow normally the Germans to safely have a safe haven where they could reinforce and replenish their troops pretty close to the front line. But with the Priest, they will not be able to do so. They will have to watch out with being hit by artillery all the time. Now, a nice grenade, early grenades being researched by Ironhide. I'm not too much of a fan of this early grenades business. A lot of players that play Americans do like to go for early grenades, but I don't really believe in it very much. I think it's a bit of a waste of 25 fuel and a lot of munitions early game, especially because in the early game is when the enemy is going to be at their highest sort of level of micro attention that they can devolve to their troops. Because think about it, you've only got infantry with micro at this point in the game, and you basically are monitoring them all the time, sending them around and putting them into probably all the best covers that you can find. So you're going to be watching them when they're engaging, and if there's a grenade that attempts to destroy your infantry squad, you're going to be able to see it, and at the very least retreat. If not, just outright dodge it by just walking back. So I don't really see that the early grenades can get a lot of wipes. Later on, the grenades are good to get rid of the sort of more substantial munitions floats that players tend to have in the late game. And of course, they are also a little bit less of a strain on resources to upgrade the tech. Now, we have the Lieutenant tech being built by Airhide, which he definitely needs, because right now he needs something that will allow him to push back against the Germans in the center. He also needs to send his rear echelon squad over here. He needs to send it to harass the points on the left side of the map. They're completely unprotected by the Germans. And of course, I say this having the fog of war off, but you always need to be sending, especially your weaker squads that don't have anything to do with like these rear echelons, you always need to send them to the other sides of the map so that the enemy will keep units to the other sides of the map at all times instead of actually committing them to the main fight like here in the center. And if they're not keeping units on their side of the map, then you're going to be able to easily take their resource points without any fight, which, if you can win a fight without having to even fire a shot, it's of course much better, especially for your nice resource income. Whoa! A huge mortar hit, taking out almost 2 entire fucking pioneers. Excellent 7 kills, taking out an entire squad and almost an entire second squad, reducing it to 1 man. That was huge. Of course, you shouldn't have been using pioneers this way. Stern pioneers are made to be flanking troops, getting into close range as soon as possible, keeping pretty much on the move all the time, instead of sitting at long range and cover. Even though it was only light cover, it was still enough for the models to bunch up into an area and make themselves vulnerable to the mortar shot. So that was definitely a nice sort of turnaround for the Allies, as they have been able to take out a 300 manpower infantry squad and pretty much 3/4 of another 300 manpower infantry squad. Now, another squad of infantry going down, another pioneer looks like from a mine on the right side of the map. That is definitely not good for the Germans, who have lost 2 Stern Pioneer squads with 600 manpower and almost an entire 3rd Stern Pioneer squad. Now, Krieghound going for a 4, or rather a 3rd for him, a Stern Pioneer, and also for Luftwaffe ground forces, will mean that the Germans are trying to make a recovery with their infantry. Now, a nice grenade will be doing a lot of damage to the Volksgrenadiers, getting pretty much 6 kills in 1 hit. So that was definitely worth expenditure of munitions. Now, he could be going for a mortar half-track right now, Ironhide. He did in fact go for a mortar half-track. I'm not the biggest fan of the mortar half-track. My friend DeFolster really loves it because of the white phosphorus barrage. It is a really good ability if you can use it correctly with good micro against support weapons and also infantry. But it is in general a very weak mortar unit because of the fact that its range is very lackluster. So you need to always keep it under control, keep it microed, and keep it enough in range so that it can fire, but also far away enough that it won't be sniped by, for example, 2 Volksgrenadier squads of Panzerschrecks approaching it. Now, nice Vickers machine gun from Kansiov, and nice lag from Relic Entertainment. This is definitely a good choice for the British. Going to be able to hold down the southern side of the map very well. Unfortunately for him, gets pretty much flame grenaded. Was allowed to pretty much close range and throw a nice grenade, and looks like the Vickers is being left to kind of burn to death, which is exactly what you should be doing. Now, the sappers can just easily go and recruit it, so yeah, but we do also have a flak. Yeah, the flak was actually in the production queue earlier for Tunsi. Tunsi going for Overwatch Doctrine. Haha, Q fucking Blizzard games. Now, interestingly enough, the Overwatch Doctrine will be getting a buff next patch for the Goliath. Goliath will be much more effective against British emplacements. It will receive a 5 times damage modifier against emplacements, so pretty much watch out if you play a lot of British against Goliaths next patch. Now, the Overwatch Doctrine in general is not my favorite. You get, at free command points, you get all the pretty much your 4 initial abilities, which are Early Warning, which basically triggers flares, automatic flares when the enemy captures your points. so you can see them. For the Fatherland, which is pretty much the CoH2 ability, your infantry will receive defensive bonuses in friendly territory, pretty much exactly as in Company Tiers 1. It's a pretty decent ability, but sometimes the OKW lacks the munitions in order to use it correctly. Forward receivers is essentially just, if we go to the Fog of War, you can see a lot of area around your headquarters, which is not exactly the most important ability to have. And it looks like the flak was actually destroyed by, I'm guessing the mortar. Does it have a vehicle kill? No, but, oh, an AT gun is here. So an AT gun combined with the MG, perhaps. Yes, the MG got the finishing blows, along with the mortar and the AT gun providing the earlier damage, so MG being the ultimate kill stealer at this point. Now, Ironhide going for the lieutenant, but not... Wait, what infantry unit? So an infantry unit was just lost for the Germans, and I haven't really seen what it is. Now, Ironhide should definitely be upgrading some of his infantry with LMGs, which he does have a little bit of enough munitions to do. But he's been throwing a lot of grenades, so it's understandable that he hasn't really been able to upgrade that much. Which is, again, one of the reasons why I don't like early grenades. I don't think that missing out on the early upgrades is good enough to get perhaps a wipe or two every once in a while. Now, definitely a good purchase on the 50 cal that will allow him to stop some of the Volksgrenadier blobbing that's going on. Of course, not exactly if it's getting outflanked, but it will be able to easily escape. Now, definitely one big problem for him is the fact that he's not harassing the left side of the map. He has been able to get out, looks like a rifleman squad, and also plant a mine over here and over here, which is really good. One of the main abilities of infantry company and also heavy cavalry company is the ability to place down mines with your riflemen. So another expenditure for his munitions that will delay his LMGs, but also another expenditure for his munitions that will help him win the game. So it is a bit unlike grenades in my opinion. Now also we have, looks like a mine went off over here as well, which is definitely a good placement for a mine. Now one big issue that the Germans have right now is the fact that the allies later on with their weapons will be able to pretty much outrange their infantry. So one solution for that is the Stuka. Stuka might be able to deal a lot of damage, like in my last cast, to infantry blobbing. And also Ironhide going for a late captain's here. Now I was about to talk about how he hadn't gone for a captain's here despite being infantry company. Infantry company and captain tier pretty much go well in hand. Because of the fact that, well, you're going to be having the mines for your riflemen, so having the AT guns to support the mines, along with the LMGs on your riflemen, to sort of have the anti-infantry coverage for your superior anti-vehicle capabilities from the captains here, is definitely really good. Now, one big problem is the fact that he will need to choose whether or not to go for an early priest or an early vehicle, like a Sherman or a Jackson, but we will see what choice he decides to make later on. Now, a pretty good push over here from the allies may do a lot of damage. We do have a Centaur from Kansiov. We do have a lot of damage coming in from the Stuka. Looks like two fucking British squads getting wiped out. Kriegshound is of course very happy about this, even though he wasn't the one that shot the Stuka. 15 kills on the Stuka first barrage. So pretty much prophetic sentences, like the last cast, the Stuka proving very useful. Now the Centaur-Akak tank over here from Kanziov is gonna prove very good against the German infantry forces, but the Germans are reinforcing their defensive lines with Raketenwerfers and the Schwerpanzer quarters. So the Schwerpanzer quarters will need to be taken out by artillery probably, or an AT gun from Ironhide. AT gun from Ironhide will be able to easily outrange the defense structure. The AT guns from Kanziov will be busy in the southern side of the map, so I don't think it would be a wise decision to bring the 6-pounder to the center. That should be better left to the 57mm of the Americans. Now, Bazooka Captain is approaching the center area, but looks like a lot of Volksgrenadiers are up and trying to defend the sort of German territory that's connecting the sort of southern area to the center. Of course, they don't really have enough points in the south to warrant losing all these troops in this futile defense. They've managed to deal a little bit of damage to the captain, but I don't think this is a good engagement to take for the Germans, especially not walking through their own incendiary grenade into a lieutenant, which is one of the best anti-infantry close range units that the Americans do have, and one Volksgrenadier squad goes down. very unsurprisingly, that was definitely a bad decision from the Germans to make this engagement happen, and also the Centauric tank almost wiping out the second squad along with the captain. Very lucky for Tunzi to get out with both of his troops. So it was Krieghound that had the Stuka. Interesting. Now, Puma coming out for Krieghound. Krieghound for the Puma is not exactly the best decision in my opinion. He should have gone for a Schwer Panzer quarters into a Panzer IV perhaps, or perhaps even a Panzer. He does have a bulletin for the Panzer, so that may have been even better. Now, the Puma will be useful against the Centaur, but it will not be too great in case the Americans do get out some kind of vehicle. Oh, excellent Stuka barrage. So again, Stuka proving its worth, dealing pretty much 8 kills and wiping out the lieutenant, which had a lot of veterancy, and also pretty much causing indirectly the wiping of this other rifleman squad that was destroyed by the Schwer Panzer quarters. Now, we do have some delayed fuse rounds being used by Ironhide on his mortar half-track. These don't work. As you see right now, these don't work, because their accuracy is terrible, and even then, the damage that they do is pathetic. As you can see, just look at this. It doesn't do anything. So it would be much better served, the mortar half-track, to use the normal mortar barrage or the white phosphorus bombardment. White phosphorus, of course, being very useful against defensive units such as these Raketenwerfers and these MGs, and the normal mortar rounds being much better against defensive positions like the Schwer Panzer quarters. Now, the Puma will definitely be a good hunter for the Priest and the mortar half-track as well. So that is one argument in favor of the Puma. Unfortunately for the Germans, Kansiel went for Royal Artillery Regiment, and he went for a Valentine, one of my favorite British units. If we do go to the British view, as you can see, it is a pretty damn dope map hack vehicle. Now, the map hacks are definitely strong in Company Fears 2. I call map hacks any unit that allows you to see into the fog of war with any kind of unit or ability that allows you to see into the fog of war with any kind of sort of constant effect or reliability or excessive. Whoa! Was that the AT gun? I'm guessing the AT gun just destroyed the Schwer Panzer. Yep, that is a lot of energy. That is the Schwer Panzer force going down. So again, as you can see, the AT gun positioning over here is really good to take out any kind of Schwer Panzer quarters over here. What he tried to do was kind of interesting. He tried to place down tank traps over here, Krieghound, to block the AT gun shots. This is actually a Company Heroes 1 tactic. He tried to block the AT gun shots that were going into the Schwer Panzer quarters with the anti-tank obstacles, but it doesn't really work out that well in Company Heroes 2. So as you can see, all these units are being spotted, and the sort of VIP Stuka is charging way too close into the fight, but it looks like it will be able to deal a lot of damage to these allied units that are pretty much clumped up around the support weapons, but thankfully this time no wipes. So one big problem for the allies right now is that they need to silence the Stuka as soon as possible. Now, one big problem is also the fact that the Puma and the Raketenwerfers are preventing their vehicles from doing this. The Valentine should definitely be pulled back. It is not a combat unit. It is pretty good against infantry, but it is not exactly the best. It's also pretty decent against light vehicles, but again, will not be able to stand up to the Puma unless it can flank it. So it looks like Tunzi will be attempting for a second round at Schwer Panzer quarters SimCity. This time a little bit more conservatively to the back side of the area, which is definitely the better decision in my opinion. But again, losing that tech structure is definitely not the best thing ever. He did go for a Goliath. It's still at the base. Looks like he built it at his own HQ. Would like to see some use made of this unit. Now, the mortar half-track along with the LMGs will be taking their toll along the German infantry. So perhaps one good usage for it is attempting to catch out one of the rifleman squads of LMGs. Now, a Fallschirmjäger squad has been dropped out by Krieghound at this sort of house. Now, again, the rear echelons from Ironhide have finally started to make some harassing moves on the left side, which is definitely really good. They need to make more harass happen on the left side of the map, or else they will suffer very greatly for it. And one big issue is also the fact that right now the Allies are starting to hit a little bit of the brick wall state of the game, where they're starting to attack into an area that is defended very well, and they just keep attacking into the same area over and over, and being pretty much decimated by defensive positions and artillery. Now, one way to defeat that is their own artillery. So I'm guessing that the Priest will be a very important vehicle for Ironhide to get as soon as possible. He does have the fuel, but he doesn't have the manpower for it. Now, the machine gun should definitely be moved up. Zone 50 Cal has been on the field for a long time, but it hasn't really been able to do much because of the fact that he has been playing very defensively with it. He should definitely be moving it up. He's definitely scared of the Stuka, but it can deal a lot of damage to approaching German infantry, and probably survive most of the Stuka shots because of the 50 Cal being a sort of being a squad that usually likes to spread out a lot. The crew of the 50 Cal is not one of those squads that has these sort of very, very bad model positioning issues. So the Centaur is up to 3 kills, so it hasn't really been doing anything this entire game. Perhaps Cromwell would have been a better decision. The British should definitely be going for either a Firefly or a Comet. The Tier 3 hasn't been upgraded with any tactics, neither a hammer nor anvil. So I would definitely like to see, as soon as possible, some kind of either upgrade or a Firefly. He doesn't really have the munitions for the Firefly because he's been using them on the concentration barrage to use his base artillery to the maximum effect. Now, one good way to improve that even further is going for hammer, or rather anvil tactics and going for the airburst shells. Looks like he will be going for a Firefly though, which, again, even without too much munitions to fire tulip rockets, is still a very powerful tank destroyer. So always a good decision for any smart British player who is very cautious with his vehicles. If you want to be very reckless with your vehicles, go for Comets. If you want to be very cautious, go for Fireflies. Now, Fallschirmjägers being unfortunately wiped by the Allies over here. Unfortunately because that squad is very valuable, and losing 440 manpower like that is not exactly good for the German players. It's kind of a big deal also because of the fact that the Allies do have the infantry superiority right now. Tunsi does have 2 Obersoldaten squads, but they aren't upgraded, and they're also not really being used. One of them is on the front lines, but it's on a very, very prepared formation with pretty much Centaurs and British infantry with LMGs available to repel any kind of their advances. Now, Reckendorfer is pushing up and attempting to take some pot shots at the Centaur that's repairing, and also the Valentine that's repairing, but it is very much too close to the fighting, and there's a 50 cal taking pot shots at it and completely wiping the Reckendorfer crew. So that is a really good pickup for the Allies if they can manage to recrew it, especially because of the fact that, while the Allied ET guns are really good against defensive positions because of their range, the Reckendorfer not really having the best range, but having a lot of penetration will help them out when the German heavies do come out later on this match. Now, Stuka approaching for a third round at Glory, 35 kills, still doing very well, not really wiping too much in the last 2 barrages, but still definitely doing a lot of damage. Now, a time on target artillery barrage is being called in by Ironhide on the Schwerer Panzer headquarters. Not before it completes a Jagdpanzer though, so even if it's destroyed right now, it's pretty much done a little bit at least, unlike before where it pretty much went down without doing anything. Now, the Jackson is available to Ironhide along with a Sherman Firefly for Kansiov, so the couple of tank destroyers for the Allies will easily be able to destroy this Schwerer Panzer headquarters and clear the way for the Allied infantry to swarm across this area. They definitely need to be bringing the hurt on this sort of positions of the Germans on the top side of the map, because they definitely need to harass this area, keep this fuel point contested, and also keep this victory point contested, perhaps even under their control, to end the game as soon as possible. They do have the pretty much... What just happened here? I just saw like a huge explosion over here. Was that a Stuka? I do see a lot of smoke, so it might have been Stuka. No, that wasn't a Stuka. It was a Goliath. Yeah, that must have been a Goliath. It was absolutely a Goliath. Yep. So it looks like a Goliath killing a German squad, which is a bit of a shame. Or maybe that was all... actually, that was the unit that I saw. So Goliath not really doing much. And we do have a Sexton on the field from Kansiov. Now, going for a Sexton makes these 2 doctrine picks kind of redundant. They pretty much cover the same units if you go for the Sexton. The Sexton being a sort of weaker version of the Priest that's also cheaper. Now, Jagdpanzer are definitely very dangerous to the Allied tanks and tank destroyers. But the German infantry is being decimated in its frontal assault against the Allied positions that are fairly well protected against any such assault. Now, the Centaur is definitely overstaying his welcome. 11 kills, it's probably going to go down from the Jagdpanzer shots. Jagdpanzer also being very, very dangerously in the line of fire of 157mm anti-tank gun, and it's going to be destroyed by the excellent maximum range. Holy shit, that sound. Maximum range anti-tank gun shot, destroying it. So, along with the German infantry kind of being in a not too great spot from the sort of overwhelming Allied presence in the center, now the Germans have a bit of a problem in terms of armor as well, in the sense that they've lost their main tank destroyer. Now, Krieghound is going for a tier 4, I hope. He hasn't gone for tier 2 ever, so I believe he will go for both tier 2 and tier 4 and go for a Tiger. That would be what I would do in this situation. Now, the Stuka has managed to keep the Germans in the game so far with 37 kills. Pretty much thinning out the Allied forces as required by their own masters. But, yeah, pretty much it's been a bit of a... What? Was that the Sexton? Yeah, the Sexton, as you can see, it's fairly pathetic. Now, 2 Jacksons from Ironhide is definitely a good choice, because his own ally went for the Sextons, which means that right now the sort of artillery war will be carried out by the British entirely, and the Allies will be, rather the Americans will be sticking to tank destroying. Now, a couple of nice Sexton shots prove that the Sexton, while fairly accurate, is also pretty pathetic in terms of actual hitting power, because that was a completely dead-on shot on a blob and didn't pretty much cave it even and only did a couple of kills. Now, an attempt from the Germans on the left side of the map to destroy this cache was repelled by the captain. Captain should definitely be moved over here to the left side to take the fuel point and also flank around here through this sort of opening and into this flank of this machine gun and taking the victory point in the north. That would be a big priority for him if I was him. For me, if I was him. Now, it's starting to pretty much have a lull in the action. One thing that the Allies are having a bit of a trouble with is the Stuka. So, what could they do with the Stuka? What could they use to deal with the Stuka? Now, one thing would actually be the Sexton. The Sexton is not too bad at hitting vehicles because of its fairly decent accuracy. So if they can bring it up and counter battery the Stuka after it is perhaps left over here, not really being remembered nor repositioned after a barrage, it's definitely a mistake from the Germans. If a Sexton was available to counter battery the Stuka at this point, he would definitely be able to destroy the Stuka. Now, other than that, what could the Allies do? They could definitely flank with one of their medium vehicles. Perhaps the Firefly even could be pushed up through the center if it had tulip rockets, to try to use tulip rockets to one-shot snipe the Stuka. That is the other main option for the Allies. Now, one big problem is the fact that they haven't really been able to deal with this machine gun at all, and pretty much the reasoning for that is because Ironhide hasn't really been flanking. If it had been flanking from the north, he would have easily been able to destroy that machine gun without any kind of issues. Now, in the center, the Germans have managed to break through a little bit and take the center VP, so the VP situation has still been even for this entire time. But other than that, there's nothing really that can indicate the Allies going down anytime soon. The Allies still have a lot of anti-infantry and a lot of pretty much solid infantry forces. They're still kind of weaker on the artillery side, but they've also got an armor superiority because of their huge amount of tank destroyers. Now, one of the Jacksons going down from the Puma definitely does not help with that. The Puma also pretty much needs to be kept alive at this point, because Vet 2 Puma and later on sort of higher Vet Pumas will be very useful against any kind of allied armor. Now, support gun destroying the vertical, that is a bit of a cheeky shot. Wait, who has the support gun? Wow, Chunsi has the support gun and it's got 3 kills, so it's pretty much nothing. 2 support guns, the other has 12 kills. So, never mind, 15 kills in 2 support guns, that was pretty good. kill count for 30 minutes into the game. We've also got pretty much 40 kills from the Stuka, about to be more. One where the 2 guys from the captain spot going down and almost wiping out the Spear Echelon, very lucky for him. Now the Sexton is starting to fire on the support guns, which is definitely not what I would have fired at. Looks like it's over here. It's up to 6 kills, so again, very slow at racking up the kills because of its very low HE power. Even if it hits directly, it doesn't really do a lot of damage, which is a bit of a shame. Now, a Kubuwagen was built by Tunsi. I believe this is a newly built Kubuwagen to harass the south side, which of course doesn't really make any sense because the British do have weapons, so they will have Piats ready to counter it, even if the rifle fire wasn't enough. Now, in the north, Ironhide has made some pretty good gains and captured the northern VP, but the support guns are starting to do a lot of damage to his own units, and the Panzerschrecks are starting to do a lot of damage to the tanks as well. So also this mortar half-check is in a very big sort of danger because, well, if the Panzerschrecks do reach it, it will only take 2 Panzerschreck shots to kill it. So he definitely needs to be very careful with it, especially that it does have, as I've said, very low range. Now, we do have a Tarman Target Artillery Barrage. This is definitely a waste. Tarman Target Artillery Barrage is very slow at coming down, despite its funny name and, well, despite the sort of real-life Tarman Target being the quickest sort of, well, it's not the quickest, but being one of the most devastating sort of techniques for artillery fire. Still, it's very pathetic against any kind of moving targets, unless it's like a sort of semi-immobilized tank, and even then it's not that much of a moving target then, is it? Now, in the south side, it does look like the Germans have managed to push up and flank the British positions. They managed to steal one of the Vickers and also bring up their Obersoldaten and take out one of the AT guns. Actually using Obersoldaten to recruit the AT gun is not the best decision. Also bringing up the Schwere Panzer headquarters, which was destroyed over here as well, interestingly enough. So the 3rd Schwere Panzer headquarters will be on the field for Tunzi. That's definitely a waste of resources. You should have built the 2nd one at the base. Now, the AT gun attempting to destroy the mortar emplacement is definitely a cheeky move, but not really the best decision considering it was recruited by Obersoldaten, so it should have been kept as sort of safe as possible because those are expensive. Those are 40 a piece. 40 manpower a piece is definitely not what you want to be using on an AT gun recruit. Now, also the machine gun that was recruited going down, the sort of southern counterattack will be hit by a Stuka barrage, doing a little bit of damage against the emplacement and also a few kills, but not overall any kind of devastating wipes or anything like that. So that's very good for the Allies who do need a bit of a reprieve. They've lost all of their VP control in this sort of counter-offensive that the Germans have made. There's also a Panther coming in on the field from Krieghound. Krieghound going for a tier 4. I would have gone for a King Tiger myself, but we'll see how the Panther performs. Panther will definitely be useful against the Sexton. If the Sexton can, if the Panther can catch the Sexton while in kind of support, it can easily take it out in a couple of shots. Also, the Panther will be useful against any kind of Jacksons. The Jacksons right now are on the south side. There's only one Jackson left because the other one was destroyed, and we have a Sherman as a replacement. The Sherman should definitely be using HE rounds against these German infantry troops. Now, the Panther is on the field, so Ironhide should definitely retreat these 2 tanks as far away from the action as possible because they are very fragile as they are USF tanks. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, USF tanks definitely very fragile, should be retreated as soon as possible. If any kind of German vehicle with a lot of armor like this Panther shows up, they definitely need to run away as quickly as possible. Now, that also goes for half-tracks, especially this mortar half-track. Also, this British mortar emplacement is about to go down. Actually, the Jackson was sniped by a moving shot at maximum range by the Panther, which is definitely very unlucky for Ironhide. And the mortar emplacement is about to go down. One big problem is the fact that Kanzyov has 1,130 manpower. He needs to be using some of that manpower to get out some AT guns and get out some machine guns. If so, if he had like 2 AT guns, 2 extra AT guns down here, 2 extra machine guns down here, this assault that the Germans are making would have been completely annihilated. Now, it's also being completely annihilated because the Panther is pretty much sitting in the fire of an AT gun and a Churchill tank. So that is really good for the Allies, completely destroying that very important German unit. Now, there's also the fact that the German assault in the center has completely failed due to this machine gun completely suppressing all of the infantry, and also the Churchill dealing some good damage against the Reckenwerfer, along with the American infantry making a nice counter push. And now the Allies should definitely look into pushing against this Schwer Panzer quarters on the south from Tunzi, and also getting out some kind of harassment maneuvers in the north and in the center. Harassment is the name of the game. Of course, they definitely need to harass the fuel point. They haven't harassed the fuel point ever, and that is a very big mistake. Go watch my video on harassment to know why it's very important to harass points. Congested, it's because you don't want to leave the enemy free resources. So far, the only Allied harassment that has taken place is against this point, which hasn't really been harassment because the Germans haven't attempted to retake it. So I guess it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. Both the Germans and the Americans and the British need to be doing more harassment. Now, Rifleman Squad with bazookas will find the Schwer in the south and will almost get wiped if it doesn't retreat soon enough, and luckily it retreats quickly enough and will not get wiped. But now the Allies do know that there's the Schwer Panzer quarters down here in the south, so the Sexton Fire and the Churchill, along with the Jackson, will be easily able to deal with that if a concerted effort is made by the Allies to break that defensive stalemate on the south side of the map. They do have the VP there, but it will also kind of like the strategic point, I do imagine. Also, the fact that the Allies do have 2 VPs does bode a little bit more in their favor because they've got a little bit of a VP lead, and if they do manage to get a triple cap going, as they have managed to do before, then they will be able to deal a lot of damage to the Germans that way and force them into bad plays to just keep themselves into the game by VP draining. Now, a second Panther is on the field from Krieghound, again, the King Tiger. The King Tiger would have a little bit of trouble because of the Jackson and the Firefly, but the King Tiger is needed right now to push into the center. The Panther is not exactly the best vehicle when there's a lot of enemy infantry, and guess what the Allies do have in droves right now is infantry. Even though Kansiov has 900 manpower saved up, the Sherman being very lucky to actually dying, so no, not being very lucky, never mind. Now, Jackson definitely making a big mistake going right into the middle of the action and being completely decimated by the Panther along with the Schwer Panzer quarters. Now, completely destroying the Schwer Panzer quarters with artillery is exactly what the Allies are doing with the time and target artillery barrage and the concentration barrage from the British. That is definitely the advantage of having both artillery doctrine and infantry doctrine. The fact that you have a lot of artillery to take out OKW buildings. Now, one big push from the German infantry is not really being met with any resistance, especially because of the sort of second-rate units that are holding this perimeter of the line. This Churchill is almost dead, and the mortar hatchet that was up to vet 3 was destroyed. Churchill is definitely in a very bad spot and is gonna be destroyed, so that is like 160 fuel going down. Also a huge grenade along with a huge Stuka barrage wiping out two German squads. That is insane. That is very unlucky for Krieghound, wiping out his own friendlies with the Stuka barrage. 5 kills, enough to wipe out 2 squads. That is definitely not what he wanted to have, especially as those were better enough infantry squads that he needs right now to continue the struggle and continue the map control game. Because right now the Germans are definitely losing in the map control game, and if the Allies can get a harassing squad against this VP that is not protected against this fuel point up here in the north, then the Allies will be in an even bigger advantage, because right now the Allies do have the infantry superiority. And no Pumas and no Panthers will deal with that. Of course, the Stuka can help deal with that if the Allies blob enough to take a lot of losses, essentially enough losses so that their blobs will be reduced to nothing, and then the Germans can sort of get their revenge. Incendiary rockets being used will actually deal a lot of damage to these riflemen, but will not wipe them. 5 more kills for the Stuka. Again, what is that running animation? What is the... What is this? Okay, this is one of the funniest running animations I've ever seen. I'm guessing it's because he was hit by the fire. So that is like the running animation when you're in a fire, but then like... Okay, so now he's back to normal. Okay, that was really weird. And he pulled the gun out of his ass. That was hilarious. Okay, that was pretty much the whole replay was worth watching just because of that moment. Now, back to talking about serious things. Referencing to my last replay to see Stukas that pretty much win the game by themselves, but I don't think it will happen this time. The Stuka does have 50 kills, but it hasn't really wiped any allied units, so the allies do still have a lot of very well equipped, very well vetted up infantry squads to run around the map and tap points for them, hold points for them, and especially swamp the German infantry and preventing them from doing the same. Now, of course, the Stuka being up to vet 4 and having the incendiary rockets is really good because of the fact that the incendiary rockets and the normal rockets are on 2 separate cooldowns. So once one is on cooldown, you can use the other. Of course, the incendiary rockets does cost 100 munitions to use. Now, the Stuka is definitely in a very bad position. In the center, it's kind of covered by the Allies' own smoke bombardments, funnily enough, that were used to defend the Sherman from their converter. But at the same time, the Allies could have used attack round to destroy the Stuka, so the Stuka should definitely be microed up much more cautiously by Krieghound. Also, Tunzi, again, he has lost 3 Schwer Panzer quarters. That is, let me count quickly, 15, 120, 135, 435 fuel. That could have been a King Tiger and a pretty much a Stuka. So King Tiger and Stuka gone completely for the fact that he hasn't really been protecting his own HQs and he has been positioning them in very bad spots. Now, a flanking Churchill is not what you see every day, but it destroyed one support gun, taken out its veterancy, which is definitely good. And also the fact that it's pretty much rolling up the line and destroying all of the German support weapons is not anything to be trifled with. Also the fact that there's a Panther on the field again from Krieghound and it's attempting to make a nice flanking maneuver against the Valentine, it looks like, is definitely a very bad thing. The Sherman also going down is not that great for the Allies as they are being swamped by German infantry, and only now at the ambulance can the Allies muster enough troops to repel them, and that is definitely not good because pretty much means that the Panther was able to sneak up unsuspected and destroy the Valentine. Now, right now, the Churchill is pretty much rampaging through the center and dealing a lot of damage to the German infantry, but that was not, I believe, a worthy trade for the Valentine. Valentine is not exactly the cheapest tank. It is 80 fuel and 300 manpower. Count should definitely consider buying a second one because the map hacks are real and are strong. So you should definitely keep the map hack game going. Now, the Panther up here is not exactly in the worst position because of the fact that the Allies only now have brought up enough AT to repel it, and that's definitely good that the Panther was retreated as quickly as it was once he saw the Sherman Firefly and the Vet 2 57mm AT gun. Infantry group lost, again, German infantry being thinned out by these sort of reckless assaults in the center that were kind of supported by the armor, but not really supported by the armor. Again, Tunzi doesn't really have anything. He had, at least up until now, a lot of infantry, but now he's got no infantry and a lot of manpower saved up, and a lot of resources in general. He needs to go for units. He needs to go for a King Tiger as soon as possible. Again, what the Germans are really lacking is a heavy tank that can just soak those hits for their infantry and push through the Allied support weapon line. If they had had a King Tiger in this push, they would have definitely been able to destroy the ambulance and push through, and perhaps deal a lot of damage to also the Allied artillery units. Now, the Stuka is still dealing a lot of damage, and a King Tiger is on the field from Tunzi, so that's good. That's really good, but it's a bit too late. 43 minutes in, the Allies have complete control of the map. Well, not complete control of the map, but they have good enough control of the map and good enough lead in terms of actual units, which is never to be underestimated, that they can do pretty much whatever they want. Now they're going for the triple cap with a captain, which will not be too deterred by German vehicles attempting to recapture this point, unless it's like full on the King Tiger, and the King Tiger will not be a very well spent unit in the north. Again, at this point, because the King Tiger was so late and because the Germans lost so many infantry squads, the fact that they don't really have supportive troops to support this King Tiger with infantry, with support weapons in general, and with tank destroyers, will start to feel itself. This sort of disability, or rather inability, it's not a disability, it's an inability. The inability to support the King Tiger will mean that the King Tiger will be pretty much swamped by Allied faster vehicles, Heck, even the Valentine, I almost said Matilda. Heck, even the Valentine can make a sort of weird flanking maneuver and make the King Tiger rotate the turret and sort of distract it from the more important targets such as this Sherman Firefly, which is now upgrading tulip rockets now that they see the King Tiger is on the field. So that is definitely a nice reactive play from Kanseal. Now, really good job from the Stuka player over here. Bet 5, 67 kills, and taking out a Bet 2 AT gun. Why is that so important? Because the American 57mm AT gun is one of the best veteran AT guns in the game because of the take aim ability. Now, Tulip Rocket dealing a huge amount of damage to the King Tiger, taking it down to 5% HP, almost going down, very close to death, and if this AT gun was still alive, the King Tiger would definitely be dead. So again, that is why taking out those veteran AT guns is so important, especially because of the fact that with the take aim, the US 57mm is able to see very far away and spot for itself. Now, German infantry and tanks are starting to make a bit of a push in the center, but I shouldn't say German, I should say Krieghoundish, because pretty much Tunsi is absent from the fighting after his King Tiger was sort of beaten back with its tail between its legs, because of the fact that essentially he doesn't have any units. He has pretty much wasted everything, and now he's definitely paying the price, and especially his teammate is paying the price, because right now he's been sort of charging in the center without any kind of support, which is also kind of a bad call on his side. He should definitely wait for his ally to rebuild his forces. Now, one problem with the allies is that, yes, they've made a slight attempt at harassing the north, but again, if they had been more proactive in harassing the north, this game would already be over. And that is, I am 100% certain on that. Now, again, a lot of wipes in the center from, or rather, onto Tunsi, and that is very bad. That is just very, very bad. He needs to work on his unit preservation as much as possible. The allies have been having sort of hit and miss unit preservation. Ironhide had a few hiccups in the early game, but right now has been able to preserve a bit of a rifleman force despite the Stuka barrages, and only now has started to lose his support weapons to the enemy. In terms of armor, he definitely preserved sort of not in the best way his armored troops, but again, the allied tanks sometimes aren't the sturdiest, so that is to be forgiven, I guess. It can be forgiven, and well, the fact that there's a Churchill tank on the field definitely helps with keeping alive tank destroyers such as the Firefly, because of having the sort of damage soaker of the Churchill is really good. Now, there's a lot of German buildings at this point huddled up around this area, and that is a really good target for the concentration barrage that Kanseal has been using. One problem for Kanseal is the fact that at this point he has to balance out using his munitions for tulip rocket strikes and concentration barrages, which is a bit of a shame because both are really useful abilities for the British. Now, the Allies do have the superiority in VPs. They have pretty much 100 VPs on the Germans, and in terms of resources, the Allies do have the advantage also because of the fact that they've been building caches, unlike the Germans. But again, had they been harassing more with these troops, such as these rear echelons, on the north, taking this victory point on and off, contesting it all the time, and also the fuel point, at this point they would have already won. There would be no contest at this point. And so finally, Ironhide is sending his rear echelon to the north, but only now he's doing that, and only now, funnily enough, Krieghound has sent troops to the north. Now, excellent shot by a mortar, looks like. Yes, a new mortar emplacement was built by the British and has gotten 22 kills, so that is really good. Both mortar emplacements that the British built did very well this game, so that was definitely one good part of his play. One bad part of his play is the fact that he needs to use some of his manpower. He needs to get out two machine guns, one in the center, one in the south, two AT guns, one in the center, one in the south. Just damn the Stuka. It doesn't matter that the Stuka will destroy these troops. Eventually, it just doesn't matter, because if you can stop the Germans even just one more time on one extra push before they can realize that there's those machine guns and those AT guns there, if you can stop them in one more push like that when they have so little VPs, you will be able to eventually win, because of just you're sacrificing manpower for time, and you need time most of all at this point as allies. Now, of course, there's also a lot of unmanned support weapons down here. There's a machine gun and two AT guns, so that's definitely one important thing to do. Now, another rifleman squad going down in the north, it looks like, from perhaps a Stuka strike? No, that wasn't a Stuka strike. I have no idea. Now, Puma's still alive, which is definitely good for the Germans, but yeah, it's not really too great of a unit because of the fact that right now the Allies do have a lot of AT. Now, in the center, the Allies have a lot of the Germans have a lot of support weapons, but they don't really have anything to push. And right now that is bad because they are in the triple cap and they have pretty much 2 minutes to win, or rather to get one of the points or lose. And again, if these weapons were manned, this push in the south would not be possible. Right now, these close ranges will be suppressed, and this King Tiger would have been forced away by the King Tiger, by the Reckenwerfer and the AT gun. Instead, the British has managed to keep 1,500. Huge mistake. Yes, I believe those are two pretty good words to describe what just happened. I believe I will keep those. That was a huge mistake. And the King Tiger gets pretty much punctured in the ass by 2 Jacksons. Excellent play by Ironhide, just seizing upon the opportunity of the King Tiger being without any support and destroying it. Again, not really sure why Kansiov isn't using these resources. Oh, I'm retarded. He doesn't have the pop cap. Well, that makes me feel very stupid. Anyway, yeah, despite that, he should keep some of his infantry in the south. Like, it doesn't matter if you're out of pop cap, you should keep your infantry in the south at this point. Or alternatively, you should use your infantry much more aggressively than you have been doing, because he's been using them defensively in the center. He should be using his units in general much more aggressively because of the fact that he's got so many resources to essentially replenish them. So you want to be trading with the enemy. The reason you want to be trading with them is the fact that if you have 300 fuel and you lose a 150 fuel vehicle, and the enemy loses a 150 fuel vehicle, and they don't have 300 fuel, such as, for example, Tunsi, then you will be able to replace it, but they won't. Of course, Krieghound also has a lot of resources, and he's going for a King Tiger, I believe, which is explained by the fact that he doesn't really have a lot of manpower. Now, some nice incendiary rockets will deal a lot of damage to his riflemen. Shuka is up to 79 kills, which is really good. But again, his infantry is definitely suffering and is draining his manpower, so pretty much just delaying his King Tiger. So one big problem for the Germans is the fact that right now they need to keep control of the VPs as much as possible. And with the Allies' superiority of infantry, that will not be too easy now. The Valentine is going down from the flank of the Panther and the Puma, and also the Mortar Hatchet does go down. The Allies definitely need to respond with something against this push. Sexton is also going down from it. Sexton only up to 10 kills in this entire time, pretty much confirming what I said about the Sexton being super fucking weak. Now, Puma going down is not exactly a nice trade because of the fact that, well, the Allies lost a 50 or rather a 40 fuel Mortar Hatchet, an 80 fuel Valentine, and an 90 fuel Sexton. So that is like 170 plus, yeah, 210 fuel for 80 fuel, which is the 90 fuel. Man, we're 70 fuel? Well, I'm stupid today. So yeah, pretty much triple the fuel losses for the Allies, and I'm pretty sure fairly similar number of manpower losses, or at a fairly similar amount of manpower losses. Now, Jackson wandering around in the northern area of the map, actually just going and finding a random battle group headquarters. Now, the second king is on the field for Krieghound, but it's too little too late. The Allies have too many tank destroyers at this point. If Ironhide can keep his tank destroyers out of harm's way and use the Sherman as bait, he can definitely do a lot of damage. Now, really good Stuka strike actually catches the Jackson and deals a lot of damage to them, which will definitely not be good, as the King Tiger will be able to deal a lot of damage as well and almost destroy it in one shot. So the Jackson being very lucky, Jackson actually missing a shot and revealing itself and dying. Now, the Sherman popping a little bit of smoke, actually hindering his own performance, but a Sherman Firefly approaches and deals a nice amount of damage with his Tulip rockets, pretty much forcing the King Tiger away. And right now the Germans have 0 VPs, so they're taking a lot of VP hurting, rather VP bleeding from the triple cap, and they only have a minute left to cap one of the VPs or face defeat, which is definitely not in the Germans' sort of reach at this point, because right now in the north they're being pushed back. In the center they may have the best chance with this Cold Fork Enwerfer, and in the south they're being repelled by some heavy engineers and some Bren, why would you do that? Why would you retreat? Just stay here and Kansiov is pissing me off. Okay, he should have definitely been keeping his infantry in the capping circle. His heavy engineers are very tough units. They've got a lot of armor. Along with the shock troops, they're the only troops that actually have armor as infantry. And they would have been able to hold the fort for a long time against these bolt-action rifle Obersoldaten. Again, big mistakes by Tunzi not operating his infantry and letting his munitions stockpile for no real reason. Now, in the center, the Rakettenwerfer was able to capture the point, but some allied infantry are trying to recapture it. Of course, the incendiary rockets will be able to easily deal with some of the infantry, but one of the areas was left out of the deadly fire, so the allied troops can easily just capture from there. Now, another support gun going down. The Germans have pretty much used this opportunity to go in the north and capture the northern point, which is really good because of the fact that right now the Germans need to keep control of some VPs. Now, in the south, unfortunately, there is actually a Centaur, which is actually a fairly decent choice at this point in the game, because of the fact that the Germans really don't have that much armor left on the field. Of course, Kriegerhound in the north does have a King Tiger and a Panther, but he's in the north, and Kansiov is in the south. So Kansiov definitely able to use that Centaur correctly against the sort of infantry-focused army of Tunzi. And I do believe that this is over. I don't see how the Germans can recover from this, and especially as Irontide is making a good push against the north. He won't be able to capture it because of this machine gun probably, but he will be able to at least force the Germans to commit some forces there to protect it. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this this Volksgrenadier might actually be able to rather capture and neutralize the center VP. There's only a 150 cal protecting the VP, and it will be able to be neutralized. Now, Centaur will not be too good against the Panther, but at the same time, there is a captain flanking from the north. So the captain will be definitely very dangerous to the Panther. Panther retreats along with the Volksgrenadiers. Volksgrenadiers also being under fire from a airburst shell barrage from the British base. Of course, the captain should be definitely focusing on recapturing this point. And the British artillery is actually dealing damage to the captain as well. But I don't believe that there will be much that the Germans can do to rectify the situation. So an hour-long game will be ended by the fact that, well, let's analyze why. Essentially, the Germans had a lot of trouble in the later stages of the game dealing with allied infantry, despite the fact that they had a Stuka with how many kills? Like 100? No, 82. Not as much, but still. They had a Stuka with 82 kills, and they had some support guns with in total, I guess, about 25 kills. So why weren't they able to deal with the allied infantry? Well, it's partially because of the fact that they weren't too focused on their own infantry. Krieghound lost a lot of it in the late game. He didn't really lose too much of it in the early game, but later on, when the infantry was actually bedded up and he needed to keep it alive, he started to get wiped a lot by the allied troops. That's definitely a problem. And Tunzi even more. So unit preservation definitely a problem. Not remaining support weapons was a problem on both sides, but especially on the Germans, as the fact that we're considering the fact that the Germans were the ones that were having infantry problems. So remanning their MGs much more diligently would have been a very good thing for the Germans to do. Another problem for the Germans is the fact that Krieghound delayed the King Tiger purchase by a long time. He should have had that King Tiger on the field and available much earlier, and that would have allowed them to push up much better against the allied troops, because the King Tiger is excellent dealing with infantry, excellent dealing with support weapons, despite the fact that it is vulnerable to tank destroyers such as these Jacksons and Fireflies. Definitely, if he had gone for it earlier, that wouldn't have been as much of a problem, because right now the Allies have had the time to build up and vet up a tank destroyer force, whereas earlier on they only had the Sherman Firefly without the tulip rockets and the Jackson, only one of them, I believe. That's why I've kind of paused, because I think it was only one of them. Once he could have gone for the King Tiger, but he decided to go for a Panther, and then he lost it, and then he went for another Panther, and that was a bit of a problem. Also, another big problem for the Germans was the fact that they didn't even really try to harass the south too much. They only did so in the later stages of the game, which did include some success, so I'm not really sure why they didn't do it earlier. But that was, of course, also a problem with the Allies, who didn't really try to do much in the north as well. So switching to the allies, what were their main problems? Now, Ironhide in the early game planted a lot of mines and threw a lot of grenades, and later on switched to sort of upgrading his infantry with his own munitions and using time on targets. Now, some of his time on targets were questionable, so I would have suggested continuing to place a lot more mines throughout the game. He had only placed them in the early game, and then later on he kind of forgot about having mines, which is, well, one of the main features of Infantry Company, because, well, it's very important. And that would have definitely helped out against the first Panthers because they were flanking a lot. And if there had been a mine over here and a mine over here, then those Panthers would have been pretty much screwed in those flanking maneuvers. Other than that, the main problem with Ironhide was the fact that essentially he didn't harass the north at all, and he should have harassed the north with rear echelons and riflemen also, but especially rear echelons for the fuel point and riflemen for the strategic point. Other than that, he microed his tanks fairly well. I mean, he lost a lot of them, but he's USF, so USF tanks are paper and they always die. He also was able to deal some good damage with his mortar half-track, which is very commendable, as that is not a unit that is easy to use. Now, Kansiov was pretty much Float Master, 101 420, blaze it, and that's the problem because, well, yeah, when you have that many resources and you are full on PopCap, you need to be more aggressive. You need to play more aggressive. And I know when you're the British, it's not that easy, but again, he should have been more aggressive, and he should have used his resources to much more good effect. He did do well with his concentration barrages, which kept the Germans pretty much pinned in their bases and not really able to do much with them, especially because of the fact that Tunzi placed his Schwerpanzer corps in pretty terrible spots and was able to lose, or rather somehow managed to lose 3 of them, which is not exactly the best thing if you're an OKW player. But other than that, yeah, pretty much the fact that he definitely needed to be using his resources more to his advantage. He had a lot of very well vetted up infantry squads, but yeah, keeping them alive was not good enough. He should have definitely tried to actually use his units proactively. Of course, having gone hammer tactics is not exactly the most. It's not exactly something that helps out in using troops sort of aggressively and efficiently in that way, but you can still make it work. So yeah, that's pretty much it. He used this doctrine fairly well. In general, the Valentines were good. The Sexton, I guess it was okay, but it wasn't really that good. It's pretty shitty, especially for 14 command points. It's just very not good. The Priest is a little bit better, but not by much, especially when you can have an allied player go for artillery and you can have another allied player go for tank destroyers only. It's very good. So I don't really disagree with that too much. Maybe some more usage of early warning would have been good, but I don't really think too much of his ability, especially when you have a lot of other things to use as munitions for, especially concentration barrages and tulip rockets. And other than that, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this cast. Thank you for Ironhide for sending in a replay. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you soon.